Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait just a few moments to let everyone come into the webinar. We'll get started in just a minute. We still have a couple people trickling in, so we'll give you a moment to come in, and then we'll get started. So just a moment. And it looks like it's slowed down significantly, so I think it's safe to get started, Kayla.
Perfect. Thanks, Desiree. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation today on diversity and inclusion in the workplace. I'm going to go over a couple of housekeeping items to start. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the question and answer feature in the chat. And depending how it goes, we may answer them when we're on it if it's a question that's appropriate with what we're going on. Otherwise, we will make sure that we answer all questions at the end. We do have a few poll questions throughout, so please respond to those when prompted. By answering those polls, you're adding to the richness of this presentation and kind of making it a little bit more interactive. Finally, we'll be providing you with a free offer for additional educational content at the end of the webinar. So make sure you stay till the end so you can get that offer. So my name is Kayla Voss. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Growth here at Peregrine. I've been with the company for almost 9 years now. And with me is my colleague, Desiree Moore, and she is our Director of Marketing and Strategic Growth. So the two of us are going to do this webinar today. So we appreciate you joining us.
Yes, thank you so much, Kayla. I'm really excited to be here. I was just telling Kayla right before we jumped on that diversity and inclusion has been embedded in my career throughout. So I've sat on several statewide coalitions and committees and organizations to influence policy and to also procure funds to drive diversity and equity work. So this is a real passion of ours, and we're excited to share it with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Desiree. So I thought I'd start by giving you guys a little bit of background on our company. Peregrine Global Service develops values-based leaders and helps higher education impact the quality of education. We have offices located in multiple different locations inside the United States. Then we have one in Paris, Tokyo, and Mongolia. We serve over 500 clients worldwide. Given our wide reach, Peregrine values and prioritizes cultural competence within our organizations and allows us to better serve our clients and work better together. So we live in a complex, interconnected world where diversity shaped by globalization and technological advances forms the fabric of modern society. Our goal in providing you with education in diversity and inclusion is to help develop leaders who create a world of belonging. So what is diversity and inclusion? Diversity is the collective blend of characteristics, values, beliefs, experiences, and backgrounds among individuals, groups, and communities. Diversity in the workplace means that a company hires a wide range of diverse individuals. Diversity is often misunderstood solely as multicultural matters. However, it also applies to the diversity of gender, race, ethnicity, age, sexuality, beliefs, experiences, language, educational backgrounds, and the list could go on. So inclusion is the full, meaningful, and authentic participation of and investment in every individual. Workplace inclusion is the concept of treating all employees equally offering them with the same availability of opportunities, resources, and the possibility of its success. No one employee is assumed to have the advantage based off of their race, gender, background, or other employment prerequisites. While workplace inclusion might seem like a standard to avoid discriminatory practices, it moves past discrimination and into avoidance of workplace cliques. By knowing how to rid employees of their biases, they might move forward in the workplace. Companies can thrive with a diverse workforce and find ultimate success.
Thank you, Kayla. That was great. I really like the phrase leaders who create a world of belonging. I just think that that is such a powerful statement and why we are here today. In addition to the definitions Kayla just provided you with, I thought a little bit of background on diversity and inclusion initiatives would help frame our presentation today. So diversity has been a corporate initiative for a several decades, and it is an evolving initiative. In the last several years, inclusion was added as a key part of the initiative because diversity can only be effective if or individuals in an organization are equitably included. And we'll discuss what inclusion means a little bit in just a moment. The way that diversity is thought of also has expanded in recent years. As Kayla said, it includes this wide array of experiences and backgrounds and identities. But before, diversity was really thought as just inherent characteristics such as race, culture, gender, and has grown to include all of those various characteristics. Diversity as a workforce topic is not new. Actually, discussions regarding workplace diversity go as far back as World War II. If you remember, that was a time when many women entered employment or the workforce because the men were serving in the military. After that, the civil rights movement provided more opportunity for diversity in the workplace. However, both of these events in history did not create immediate change. And diversity efforts continued to be stifled because of various factors for years and years to come. In the 80s and 90s, you began to see women joining the workforce more regularly, especially in areas in which they've never worked before, areas that were dominated by men. And then in 2000, women made up nearly 40% of the global workforce. What is interesting is this number really hasn't budged. It's the same today. Um, and women have seen an increase in equity over the last 2 decades when it comes to employment, but there is still a lot of work to be done and it continues to improve over time. The focus of diversity in the workplace in the 2010s shifted from gender to support individuals of various cultures and be inclusive of those with disabilities. So over the last decade in the US, we've experienced the most culturally diverse workforce and also one of the most productive periods in US history. And companies are taking notice. They're saying, wow, we become more diverse and more productive. Why is that? Um, Also, outside of growing awareness for creating diverse and inclusive workplaces, the increase of remote work has given the advancements in technology, has allowed employers to broaden their talent, which is really cool. The benefits for candidates were obvious, right? For people with disabilities or people who belong to affected populations or those that are not as often represented. They could now apply for and work in jobs that used to be closed off to them. But the benefits to employers were even greater. For example, by increasing access to employment for persons with disabilities, a study by the International Labor Organization tells us that 1 billion people in the world with disabilities, out of 1 billion of them, right? 80% are of working age, thereby increasing the talent pool for employers. So we're going to take a moment and do a poll. I just want to ask you this question. What are the potential benefits, or what benefits do you see or think of when you think of integrating or implementing a diversity and equity program within the workplace? And I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll right now. You'll see the answers are better decision making, greater variety of ideas, people learning more about each other, higher profits, improved work environment. You can choose as many as you think are applicable. All right, so you should be able to see the poll now, and I'll give you just a moment to vote. All right, most of you have voted. I'm gonna wait. I got about 75%. Let's see if we can get that up a little bit higher into the 80s. If not, that is okay. Oh, we're getting high. That's awesome. We're at 87% response. That is great. So I'll just go over these results with you real quick. So 71% said better decision making, 100% said a greater variety of ideas, 86% said people learning more about each other, 71% said improved work environment. So I'm the most popular was a greater variety of ideas. That was rated the highest. And then the lowest was better decision making and higher profits. So it's very interesting, and we'll continue to share with you and kind of circle back to this in a little bit. Okay. So enterprises are discovering that there are many benefits to diversity and inclusion, and they go beyond the optics. Organizations have the transformative power to change and contribute to more open, diverse, and inclusive society. Therefore, creating a diverse and inclusive workplace is critical to supporting a company's social responsibility. Additionally, sustaining an inclusive and diverse workplace provides organizations with a competitive advantage. Diversity and inclusion bring the strength of different perspectives, which a lot of you said, to problem solving in the workplace. According to Ted Colbert, Boeing's chief information officer, the best workforce is a diverse workforce. Countless studies support this statement, directly linking organizational diversity and inclusion to higher profits. And that was one of the less popular options. And we'll get into exactly how specifically in just a little bit, but remember that. However, while profits is a driving force for companies to integrate a particular effort into their core strategies, the more important question is why this connection exists. Why does diversity and inclusion support higher profits? Therein lies the true source of competitive advantage for organizations. Diversity of experience and opinions has been tied to innovation and creativity throughout time and time again. One Forbes study identified workforce diversity and inclusion as a key driver of innovation. Remember, you said that you thought it would be all of various ideas, right? That was one of the most popular. It's that, right? It is that is connected to driving higher profits. When it works, diversity increases workplace productivity and profits. Each year, Diversity Incorporated selects the top 50 most diverse companies. And in 2020, their workplace, they noticed that the 50 most diverse companies took 75% less sick days than employees who felt like they didn't belong. So they take less sick days if they are in a diverse environment, and they also receive twice as many raises, and companies see 50% less turnover.
That's pretty awesome. So let's, one of the things Desiree spoke about was profitability. So I'm going to go over a few stats that help support that statement and some of the other statements that Desiree went over. So companies in the top quartile of gender diversity are 15% more likely to have financial returns that are above the national industry median. Companies in the top quartile of racial ethnic diversity are 35% more likely to have financial returns above that national industry median. And companies reporting the highest level of racial diversity brought in nearly 15 times more sales revenues on average than those with the lowest level of racial diversity. So I think that speaks pretty high volumes. 67% of job seekers said that diverse workforce is an important factor when evaluating companies and job offers. 83% of millennials are more engaged when they think their company fosters inclusive and culture. This stat is particularly important because by the year 2025, 75% of the global workforce will be made up from millennials, which that's very interesting to think about as well. So how does diversity drive profitability? Desiree spoke on this broadly, but let's think about this more specifically. There are 3 areas that businesses can benefit in this particular: marketing, Having a diverse market workforce builds trust in your brand with a diverse target market. Operations. Valuing diversity cuts costs by reducing turnover and absenteeism. It also avoids legal expenses by enhancing employee engagement by showing the company understands and respects different cultures. Valuing diversity also gives the company the freedom to go over the most talented people regardless of their differences. And then, of course, innovation, which many of you picked. Diversity within a product development team is very powerful. When it is in sync with diverse target markets, the team creates new products that satisfy the market's needs. This is because of a diverse workforce better understands the diverse markets. So embracing diversity also cuts down on legal costs. It is illegal for employers to discriminate against employees based on their race, religion, gender, and the list goes on. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission promotes equal opportunity and handles those complaints about workplace discrimination.
Thank you, Kayla. Those were some great stats. The 75% of our workforce will be millennials by 2025 blew me away.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
And I think it's made even more powerful by what I'm about to share regarding inclusion. And we'll start with this quote. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance.
I like that.
I like it too. Yes. Diversity within a workforce is always good, right? But to actually provide the benefits discussed, inclusion is a must. It's necessary. Inclusion means that the people within an organization feel like they belong and are valued. These feelings is what leads to increased productivity and employees who are invested in the organization. In addition, diverse employees bring with them different perspectives. We can't emphasize that enough because it's so important. So they see problems from different angles and can offer unique approaches to problem solving and brainstorming sessions. Employees from diverse ethnic and socioeconomic backgrounds also understand different segments of the population and can help the company or organization market more effectively to different demographics. A really good example of this is I actually worked in the nonprofit sector for a safety net healthcare provider. And because of some of my unique experiences when I was communicating with donors and then also our community, because we did market our services, I was able to tie those in, right? Because I came from poverty, right? And that was who we were serving. But the majority of the people who worked there were primarily middle class. And so that was a really great experience. And so in that particular situation, I added something to the company because I came from that different demographic, right? And companies simply cannot ignore inclusion as a priority because the cost of a non-inclusive culture is too high. If they leave their jobs because they feel undervalued, the company will incur the cost of severance packages, the outlay to hire and retrain replacements, and the lost productivity during the training periods for new employees. I always remember what it was like, and I'm telling a lot of personal stories, but I think that people connect to people, and these kind of bring it home. But I always remember the first time what it was like to work for an organization that was inclusive. Several years into my career, I was very cognizant of being a woman. I remember focusing my energy in meetings and in interactions with others on making sure I didn't come across as like too positive and naive and bubbly because that's my personality, but also not like too brash. And it seemed like sometimes my ideas were not readily accepted, and I couldn't quite figure out why. But then somebody that met different demographics would say the same thing, and people would get excited, and I didn't understand it. And then when I started working for my first organization that really valued and put work into diversity inclusion, I came to realize that after several months of working there, I did not have to think about the fact that I was a woman once in a meeting. And I got to be myself, and my ideas were welcome and sometimes celebrated if they were good ones. You know, not all ideas are good ideas. Um, and and that was the first time I realized what it's like to work in an inclusive environment, and also an environment without unconscious bias. I don't think anybody in my career before that was trying to make me feel that way, right? Nobody's trying to make me feel that way, but we do sometimes have unconscious biases that we're not aware of that can impact how we treat others in the workforce and make them feel not included. And this is a really great stat I just want to share because it kind of ties into that personal experience I just shared with you. But without diverse leadership, women are 20% less likely than straight white men to win endorsement for their ideas. People of color are 24% less likely. People who belong to the LGBTQ community are 21% less likely. And this is according to Harvard Business Review. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what inclusion means. So here's just a little bit more. So inclusion refers to the degree, and ask yourself this, as I'm going over this, ask yourself, in my organization, where do we stand with this, right? Where are we at? Inclusion refers to the degree in which individuals can use their voice. So ask yourself, can I use my voice? Can the people around me use their voice? Participate in decision-making processes with a group because it's very important. Increase the amount of power they have within the group. So are people able to progress in their careers within your organization equitably? Feel like they belong to the group? Do the people in your organization feel like they have a sense of belonging? Connect and this is where we connect inclusion to employee engagement, because if you ask yourself those questions and you make sure that those things are happening and you have a high degree of all of them, you're going to be engaging your employees. So it's not just about diversity and inclusion. It's about employee engagement. It's about running a really great company or an organization. All right, so we're going to do another poll. I really like the polls today. And this question, I want you to tell us how you would define your organization's approach to diversity and inclusion. Would you say it's very formal, lots of training and information, informal, but still part of the culture, which might be very common for smaller companies, or not part of the culture at all? And I'll go ahead and launch this poll. Give me just one moment. I just got to figure out, there we go, launch poll. All right, so you should see that poll right there, and I see that you are already there answering. Thank you so much. Okay, we have about 50% of you. Oh, that's going fast. You guys are answering quite quickly, so we're going to give it just a moment. We've 80-something% of you have voted, so I'm going to go ahead and call that. So far we have 29% that said very formal, lots of training and information, and that's pretty cool. And then 71% said informal, but still part of the culture. And then 0% said not at all part of the culture, which makes me very happy.
Yeah.
So that's great news.
That is good news.
Okay.
Did you have anything else about the poll, Desiree?
Nope.
Okay, perfect. 38% of the 12,543 working Americans that were surveyed in 2018 said that it's a high priority for their company for business reasons and, more importantly, for ethical ones. More and more companies have set diversity and inclusion related goals and commitments to pursuing a more balanced workforce. However, unfortunately, good intentions aren't always translated into employees' real experiences. Many employees still feel that they don't belong, and dozens of companies have made recent headlines for diversity and inclusion related crises. In these workplaces, many female employees don't feel respected or oftentimes even unsafe. Minorities can be painfully unrepresented. People with disabilities often don't have the resources they need to be successful, and the list goes on. A survey by Ramesh of more than 100 employees found that only 6% of employees responded that their organization had a formal program, and 63% said that it was informal, and 31% said their diversity and inclusion were not a part of their company at all. So that's some pretty high statistics for that. So the question is, how do we create a culture of diversity and inclusion? For diversity to bring strength into the workforce, it should be valued at the corporate philosophy level. More important, it should be integrated into the company's practices. It takes time and a commitment to celebrate diverse and promote inclusion, to celebrate diversity, not diverse, and company practices. Workers must be open-minded and non-judgmental to truly understand how cultural diversity can impact the workplace and make it a better place. Creating a diverse and inclusion initiative includes the following steps: identifying the problem. You can't begin to create a program or strategy until you understand where your organization is at and where improvements should be made. Once you have identified the problem, it is then time to create a diverse and inclusion strategy. Throughout the process, you should involve the entire team. Then it is the time to implement the initiative, which should include offering training programs based on your needs, better accommodating disabilities, making adequate decisions, holding people accountable, and ensuring that you factor in the cost and time restraints along the way. Finally, you need to make sure that you continue to measure your progress and make changes as they are necessary. Because it's one thing to put a process into place and to build this, but if you're not measuring it and making sure that there's success along the right way, then there's not really, you might as well not waste the time or money on creating the plan.
Absolutely.
If the steps to creating a culture of diversity and inclusion in the workplace is identifying the problem, this begs the question, how do you measure diversity and inclusion? Because diversity has so many different dimensions, including age, gender, race, and as we've mentioned, the list can go on and on. It's difficult to know exactly what to measure. And the same goes with inclusion. It is possible, though, that you concentrate on performance improvements that are indicated for better inclusion and diversity, including retaining the best talents, driving innovation, better understanding customers, and better financial performance. For measures that directly address inclusion, concentrate on employees' feelings that they are part of a team, they are being respected and valued, they're being heard. For diversity, concentrate on your efforts on measuring representation within your board, hiring roles, and all levels within the organization, including senior leadership. So what are some metrics that you can use to measure this that we just discussed? There's a variety of measures across the board, across 3 board categories. Data and reflects the dimensions of inclusion. Employee experience. Are companies making sure that they're asking for and giving employees anonymous feedback opportunities on how the employees feel? What are they even talking about inclusion? Do they feel that they belong to their organization? And then demographic. Is there inequity in pay, position level, or promotion rates by gender, ethnical backgrounds, or other demographic segments? Does baseline data show any evidence that some groups have advantages over others? For example, you may find that a particular department tends to hire only females, or promotions have been limited for individuals with English as their second language. And then, of course, behavior. Do people have equal opportunity to succeed? Are people included equally on prioritized initiatives, working documents, and meetings with key leadership members? So there's a lot of different ways that you can measure this. Sometimes you just have to be a little bit creative.
Absolutely. That is a great point. And trying to find those trends, right? Who is getting promoted? Who is not getting promoted? Who are we hiring? Who is having, even retention rates, right? Are we who are we turning over? All of those things can unveil whether you have maybe some issues to work on in your organization. And it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to not be perfect. What is not okay is to ignore the problems, right? And so that's why we're here to help you just understand diversity and inclusion and help you start to think about putting forth a plan or assisting your organization in this. So once you understand what issues your organization may experience or areas for improvement, you should take a look at the policies and practices that address diversity and inclusion. We can all be guilty of unconscious bias. I mentioned this earlier with my experience in my own career, that I didn't think anybody was trying to make me feel unheard. Um, there was just some unconscious bias that existed, right? And I wasn't even aware of it at the time. So therefore, if you notice trends in your data, it's important to look for unconscious biases that may exist. Here's a really good example. A common unconscious bias is attribute, I can't say the word, attribution bias. Thank you. This is when we falsely assume something about a person without knowing their whole story. For example, a gap on a resume may be related to taking time away from work to care for a family member. Let's say they have 2 years where they have absolutely no work experience. And you might see this gap, and because of your own unconscious biases, maybe because of the way you're raised or your beliefs or values, you're like, oh, this is a red flag. This is problematic, right? But maybe it's not. It's not because you haven't asked the question. You haven't asked them why they have that gap of time on their resume. And so to overcome this type of unconscious bias that some of us will experience, it's important that we ask, right? It's important that we seek out information. If we notice things on a resume or in the interview process that we find to be a little bit odd, we should ask about those. Um, and therefore avoid any type of bias. um, Also, does your company acknowledge the holidays and specific cultures and religions of other people? We mentioned that Peregrine Global Services is a global company and we have offices everywhere. And the holidays in the US don't match up to the holidays in Paris. And so we have a really great coworker. You may have seen him here on a webinar with us, Paul, but he takes different holidays than we do, doesn't he, Kayla? So if they
Yeah,
have a European holiday, he takes that holiday. We acknowledge that, and he gets that time. Um, he doesn't. I don't think he takes all of the U.S. holidays. Only if the U.S. holiday and the European holiday are the same. Um,
exactly.
mhm. And then also another way is to address policies and practices to make it easy for people to participate in employee resource groups. This will give your organization or give your employees a voice on how your organization uses policy and practices. So make sure you're including people from various departments when you're talking about employee resources. So that way you're gaining the perspective of people beyond you. It's very important. And making sure people feel heard too. Um, all right. And so once you have looked at your policies and practices, okay, based on what your data has shown you, it's also um, something that you might struggle with is procuring buy-in and support from um, executives or employees, right? Maybe they think, oh, we're doing fine at diversity and inclusion. We don't need any help, or it's just not a priority for them. Maybe they're worried about some of the barriers or obstacles that may come up if they start a diversity and inclusion initiative or change their current diversity and inclusion initiative. So here's just some tips on how you can gain buy-in and support from these two different groups. Um, so first of all, leverage research. So we talked about we shared statistics about how biases do exist. We shared research about how good it is for companies to practice diversity and inclusion and have those initiatives, how harmful it is when you don't. So leverage that research and share that with your executives. Um, Also use stories, use the lived experiences of others. I say this all the time, people connect to people, right?
Mhm.
And those stories are so powerful. And then know what you're asking for. What are you asking executives to do to help you with this diversity inclusion effort? Are you asking them to give you protection, support, and assurances from retaliation? Are you asking them to participate visibly, be receptive to input, and feedback, or maybe you're asking them for money. Maybe you need to create a budget because you need some money to do this, to procure some training, or maybe a consultant or somebody to come in and help you with this effort, or somebody who has an expertise in strategic planning, but also understands diversity and equity and can help you kind of weave the two in together. So for employees to gain buy-in, respect the right to choose. What I've seen over and over again is that those that are underrepresented, so minorities, women, they can be the biggest champions for diversity inclusion efforts, but they're also asked the most, or they're the only ones asked, and they're doing all the work. And so respect their right to choose whether they participate in diversity inclusion work and at what level they do that. And also don't miss out on other people within your organization that may be really interested in this work and want to help with it, just because they don't belong to one of the groups that you're trying to help. So make sure you give everybody the right to choose whether they participate or not. Ask to listen. This is very important. When you first reach out to your employees, start with a simple request to have a conversation, to have a dialogue. Let's say you're setting up your first diversity and inclusion meeting, right? You're going to start this initiative. Don't come in with an agenda, right? With this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to line it out. This is what's going to happen. Because the thing is then you're being the opposite of inclusive. You want to make sure that you're including employees and including your team and helping you kind of figure out what this looks like, that you're getting feedback from them and that they're being heard and you're listening. And then be transparent and accountable. One of the things you'll find when you start uncovering all these trends in your data, or maybe other things that are happening, is that some of it you might go, gosh, I don't want to share this with anybody. This is really bad. We got to fix this, but I want to do it behind closed doors. You know what I mean? But don't do that. Share it with your employees, be transparent and be accountable. This is the issue we're having at this organization. This is what we're going to do to mitigate it in the future. And this is how we're going to fix it and continue to fix it and continuously improve after today, right? Have those hard conversations. They're really hard to have, but you are going to have a much more successful program or initiative if you do so. All right, training is a huge part of it. Most diversity and inclusion initiatives or programs include training because there's just so much we don't know and so much we can learn and so many skills that we can continue to develop. And you don't, I mean, you should search for diversity and inclusion training, diversity, inclusion, and equity. You'll hear sometimes because equity has become a bigger and bigger part of it. And Peregrine has, I'll just tell you, Peregrine have courses on this. But there's other things. Maybe it's unconscious or implicit bias training, multicultural communication, emotional intelligence is huge, conflict management, communication, leadership. All of those different areas and topics are actually going to help your employees create a more diverse and inclusive environment.
Absolutely. I think emotional intelligence is a good one too. As Desiree mentioned, some of these Peregrine offers some of the trainings and different solutions and some of the items she just talked about. But one thing that I do want to go into a little bit deeper is our value skills. So we have an value skills program that we developed, and it's a 360 evaluation process that directly measures proficiency levels of essential workplace competencies. So some of those soft skills that are a little bit harder to assess. The assessment uses a perspective where they send it into peers, supervisors, clients, colleagues, and they give them a list of objectives to assess on their leadership of their employees. Skills that can be measured include cultural competencies, communications, conflict management, valuing diversity, teamwork, emotional intelligence, all of the things that Desiree just talked about. And the list goes on and on. I think there's over 30 different areas that you can customize and choose to have your evaluations be based on. And it's 100% confidential. So it allows for you to receive the feedback, and they can give it open and honest because it is 100% confidential. It allows for written feedback. So it helps promote cultural feedback that can create awareness and help team members truly see where their peers in leadership sees them and sees their strengths and weaknesses and helps them pinpoint that area for growth. So each skill, once it's selected, is given 5 sample statements of behaviors that correspond to each rating. And so that helps with provide objectivity for the evaluators rating the participant, which is important because if you don't have a clear idea of where their strengths and weaknesses lie, if you're not getting true feedback. So for example, like I really like working with Desiree and she and I get along great. So I may just go across the board and, oh, 5, she's exceptional. She's great at teamwork. However, once I read those rubrics, it will give me behavior statements. And I may realize that although I really get along with Desiree and like her, she may be more like 3 when I'm reading it based off the rubrics versus just that 1 through 5. So there's a little bit more objectivity. And then a value skills allows you to generate a variety of different reports. And so the reports can be at a group level. So the overall strengths and weaknesses based at where you're at. So you can kind of see where you're at based off the other people within your group. And it provides personal information to help you identify where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, as well as the group as a whole. So maybe as executive leadership, you can help guide and train in different areas based off of these results and reports. And then also they receive that participation report, which gives them the idea of them personally where they can work on and have a better action plan to create, will help them create an action plan to work on those strengths and weaknesses. And it just provides you a tool to help see where you're at. And then the action plan allows learners to identify a proposed timeline for activities that will help them develop the skills that they need to meet to help them stay accountable for what they found on the based off of the feedback from their peers.
It's really great having that action plan with it. A value skills is
the next level.
Yeah, it is, because I mean, you can learn all you. I can learn a lot about myself, but unless I actually have something that I'm going to do with it, right?
Yeah.
So, I am a 3 as a communicator, where my team is a 4, and I rated myself a 5 because I think I'm the bee's knees. You know, like, oh, obviously I have some blind spots, and I'm not as great of a communicator as I thought I was, and I need to figure out what are the actions I need to take to improve that. And I like the idea of building a culture of feedback. And values, I mean, you said there's over 30, soft skills just related to the areas that we're talking about today with, diversity, inclusion, and things like that. But there's over 200 skills total in the entire database. So that would be very helpful. Yeah, so I think Value Skills is a great resource and really nice, and it complements our other various programs and courses. Because once you have an idea of where you're at, so let's say you use something like a Value Skills, a 360-degree assessment, and you say, oh, wow, well, these, these teams are really great at valuing diversity, or they're not very good in this area. Then you can figure out where you want to focus your talent development, right? So for nearly 20 years, Peregrine has developed leaders and teams around the world. We do have a global reach. Through our experience, we've learned that each leader has a unique path and individual leadership development needs. And so we really try to meet you where you're at. So what we've done is we've paired innovative technology with the power of human connection, because we really need both, right? We need mentors, we need guides as we develop as humans, but we also need the flexibility to learn and develop from any location at any time that works for us. So we've designed Peregrine Pathways, where you have access to a wide assortment of professional development resources, including online self-guided courses, live virtual seminars, and comprehensive certificate programs, most of which qualify for SHRM, CEUs, and other professional development hours for other organizations that we've worked with, including the Wyoming Post. It's police. What does that stand for, Kayla?
Peace officers and sheriffs.
Yes, police officers and sheriffs, and then also Wyoming teachers and administrators. And you can view all of these, of course, on our website, but if you would like to see a catalog, also that lists out all of the online courses that we have, please let us know and we would be happy to send that to you. Peregrine Pathways also includes programs, so it's courses and programs. Right now, we're actually going through your Bridge to Supervision, and it's open enrollment, so you can enroll at any time. And it's a 12-unit certificate program that has a combination of online courses, extra readings, and live or on-demand seminars. And so it's really this great, robust, comprehensive program it really focuses on leadership. It's great for new supervisors, people who have been supervisors for a little bit but want to, refresh their skills, people who maybe are just team members or individual contributors who are looking at becoming a supervisor or want to grow their leadership abilities. And then we have customized training programs. We do say together we can create a solution to unlock the full potential of your employees, supervisors, and leaders. Our team has a wide area of expertise, very wide, anywhere from strategic planning to organizational development to executive leadership. And employee engagements, teamwork. And so if there's something you need specifically for an organization, then you can reach out to us. Of course, you can develop your own customized training program for just you as an individual by selecting from the courses in our that we have available for you. And then we have executive leadership program, which we work with leaders at the executive level to position organizations for growth through effective leadership. Okay, so online courses. I've talked about those briefly, but I just want to share a little bit more about our online courses. They are really great. I've taken a lot of online courses in my time because I'm a little bit addicted to professional development. But these really allow you to grow your skills and achieve your personal and professional goals. What I like about our online courses is that they're mostly cross-disciplinary, right, or cross-industry. So they're applicable to whatever industry that you're in. It's really the development of competencies that are needed for success in the workplace. The things that people complain about all the time, like, oh, we have gaps in people who have these soft skills or the executive skills or professional skills. And those are the skills that are grown throughout our modules, as well as other things. You can learn from anywhere, anytime. You can engage in high quality and dynamic content. It really is high quality. It is really dynamic. There's videos, there's audio clips, there's activities. You can earn continuing education credits. If you need continuing education credits for a organization that we currently are not partnered with, reach out to us and we'll see what we can do. And then you have unlimited access to course content for 2 years. That is different than a lot of the courses I see. Usually I only have access for a month, maybe 6 months at the most, or it's a subscription program. So I really wanted to learn digital marketing and somehow I paid $30 a month for an entire year. And I only took one course because they gave me access to all their courses, but I really only wanted that one. So once you buy a course, you have access to it for 2 years. It's not a reoccurring, charge. Okay, we told you we'd give you free content, didn't we, Kayla? And I
We
finally give.
did. The time is now.
I know you waited. You waited. I would like to give you our course, Leading Change. It is one of our online courses. This course will help you understand how to lead through change in a way that soothes fears and keeps your workplace thriving. And the reason I chose this course to give to you is because diversity and inclusion requires change, and that we manage change well. And not only do we manage it ourselves well, but we inspire, motivate others to be excited about change versus dread it. And we want to help you do that. So as a follow-up to this webinar, everybody who's still here, I can see you will get an email with a discount code to go into our e-commerce and buy this with a 100% discount, and then you can start taking it right away. And I hope you enjoy it. If you have any feedback, we would be delighted to hear it. But now it's time for questions and answers, and we have a few. Yeah, so I'll just Kayla, one of the questions we have, and I'll let you answer this one because I know you know it, is with a value skills, can you easily assess like different departments? So if they have different departments that they want to assess, like they want to assess their like, I don't know, their development department. We have a development department versus their marketing department. I'm marketing.
Yeah, we can definitely break it out into different departments and groups based on what your needs are and how many people are in each group. And then the only thing that I'm not 100% sure of, because I don't think we've ever done this, is if we can then do like a whole. So like do Peregrine as a whole group and then do like our marketing department and our client engagement department. I'm not sure about that. I don't think that that's a capability right now, but that's a good idea. And it's definitely something I'm going to take to the developers now. But you definitely can do two different groups of people in departments. Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. Another question we have is, it says, we are part of a small organization. What would be the best way to approach starting diversity and inclusion when resources are limited and there are time constraints? That is a great question. I would say, especially for a small organization, which is a little bit more intimate, first of all, ensure that people have an understanding of diversity and inclusion, right? I think that's number one, because sometimes what you'll find is that a lot of people just don't know that much about it yet. So make sure you're providing those training resources. And that could be something as simple as sending them our webinar today and saying, watch the first 20 minutes. It's going to discuss diversity and inclusion. So that's 20 minutes, right? So there are time constraints, but 20 minutes to learn about diversity or inclusion. Or if you need something else, there's other options. We do have a course on it. I think I mentioned that before. But then have an open discussion, have kind of a roundtable discussion where you say, what are your questions about diversity and inclusion? How do you think diversity and inclusion impacts us in our workplace? Ask them questions like, where do you feel we struggle with diversity and inclusion? Now, if you don't feel that your people at your organization are going to answer honestly because you are too small, or because there's somebody on the team that wouldn't like this, I don't know what the reason would be, put out a survey and guarantee your people it's 100% confidential.
Yeah.
That's and you could, there's lots of survey tools out there. There are lots of survey tools, and especially if you're using just small numbers, you can get a lot of them for free or very inexpensively. But survey your people. So if a round table, so you know your people better than I do, so either a round table discussion or a survey, and then keep those survey results, confidential, but definitely keep them quantifiable. Don't share the qualitative data, show the quantifiable data in a group setting to protect people's anonymity. That's what I would do, because if people are giving you open-ended responses, right? They're saying, well, Susie said this really awful thing to me the other day, told me this, joke that was really, off color. Susie's gonna know who said that about her. So just be careful, especially if you're in a small organization, to keep things confidential if that's important to your people. All right. Any other questions?
It looks like we have one here for you. This is Desiree's favorite. How about equity? How does it feature in diversity and inclusion?
Yes. Okay. Yes, this is my favorite. We did discuss it a lot in this one. Our module is mostly based on diversity and inclusion. The reason being is because, it's really focused on like multicultural and multiple languages and working across the globe and things like that. But especially in the United States today, equity is so important. And I always think of it this, have you ever seen that? There's a infographic and it shows, everybody on a bike. If we were all equal, we'd all have the same size bike. And there's a little short man on this big old bike and a really tall man on this big old bike. And then, a person with a wheelchair who can't get on the bike, right? But it says, but equity is about everybody having what they need to reach their full potential, right? Having equal access to opportunity. So everybody gets a bike, but the bike fits them, right? The little short person gets a small bike and the really tall person gets a big bike, and the person in the wheelchair doesn't gets a different kind of but what
Adaptive bike.
Yes, thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. Yes, you will get the PowerPoint presentation Today, I will get it to you within the next 24 hours. But so it's kind of that trifecta. You have diversity, inclusion, and equity. So diversity is all of the different people of different characteristics. Inclusion is making sure all of those people are included, they're invited to dance. And equity is making sure they have the means to dance, right? So that is how that all works. So you can include your people, but you have to give them the means equitably to participate in that dance. So that includes accommodating needs, all kinds of stuff. All right. Any other questions?
I don't see any on my end.
Yeah, I don't see any more in the Q&A feature. I'm glad you caught those ones in chat. Otherwise, I wouldn't have seen them. And yes, I will get you it in 24 hours. All right. Well, we're going to conclude the presentation for today. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you, Kayla, for presenting with me.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. So
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.